Brace yourself, America. Germany's punching back at Trump's tariff tantrum, and they're not pulling punches. The economic fallout's about to get ugly. Recently, Germany's economic minister Robert Habeck tore into the Trump regime, calling its tariff math utterly nonsense and branding the U.S. as cornered in a position of weakness per WSJ. With markets tanking, the Dow down 6,000 points since Trump's inauguration, per Bloomberg, Habeck's jab lands hard. America's not leading. It's limping. A shadow of the envy of the world. It was under Biden's 20% plus equity growth years, per WSJ. Habeck's threat is a dagger. We can hurt the U.S. on pharmaceuticals, he warned, per Reuters, spotlighting America's heavy reliance on Europe. Germany supplies 15% of U.S. drug imports, per CNN Business. Trump's retort today? We got to rush and put tariffs on pharmaceuticals. Per Bloomberg, a reckless lunge that could spike prices and choke access, risking lives while the S&P bleeds $10 trillion this year, per Goldman Sachs. Biden made things cheaper. Trump's killing us. Economist Paul Krugman blasted on CNBC as insulin costs loom higher, per WSJ. The stakes are brutal. This is a Great Depression trigger, Habeck implied, per Reuters, as Trump's America First isolation craters U.S. treasuries, down for 2 days after a $58 billion auction flop, per Financial Times. Germany's eyeing a $124 billion gold pullout from New York, per Bloomberg, signaling zero trust. The U.S. is last now. Analyst Ben Meiselas noted on Midas Touch, per CNN Business. Japan, UK, even China outpace us. The Wall Street Journal gutted it. Germany's striking back, and Trump's tariffs are America's Achilles heel. As allies revolt, one question looms. Can Trump's ego outrun the wreckage? The markets say no, and Germany's swinging. The U.S. bond market's imploding, and Trump's chaos is the detonator. The Financial Times reported today that U.S. treasuries tanked for a second straight day after a measly $58 billion auction flopped this week, per Bloomberg, sending yields soaring as trust evaporates. $10 trillion already bled from markets this year, per Goldman Sachs. Analyst Umit Singh Duga sounded the alarm, per Reuters, warning of a looming strike among foreign buyers like China and Germany. Why would we subsidize U.S. debt? He snapped, as the Dow's 6,000-point plunge since Trump's inauguration, per WSJ, turns America into a pariah. Germany's response is a gut punch. They're mulling yanking 1,200 tons of gold, $124 billion, from the Federal Reserve's New York vault, per Bloomberg, a seismic shift driven by Trump's erratic tariffs, per CNN Business. His unpredictability's a liability, German official Karl Kintonia posted, per Reuters, slashing faith in a U.S. that's shed its envy of the world sheen. Biden's 20% plus equity growth years a distant memory, per WSJ. The S&P's bleeding, per Bloomberg, while Germany eyes self-preservation. The stakes are brutal. Trump's turned treasuries into toxic waste, economist Paul Krugman blasted on CNBC, as foreign holders, China with $1 trillion, Europe close behind, recoil from a $10 billion tariff hit, per WSJ. Germany's gold grab signals a U.S. economy on the ropes. $34 billion flowed to billionaires like Charles Schwab in a day, per Bloomberg, while 401ks crater, per BLS. It's a trust collapse, analyst Ben Meiselas warned on Midas Touch, per CNN Business. The Wall Street Journal carved it up. Trump's chaos is bleeding bonds dry. Germany's gold says it all. As markets tank, one question looms. Can America's debt survive this exodus? The vault's emptying. And fast. Germany's economic minister Robert Habeck isn't mincing words. Trump's tariff logic is a house of cards, and he's torching it. Recently, Habeck shredded the claim that trade deficits make America a globalization loser, pointing out U.S. GDP outpaced Germany's over 20 years, per WSJ, a fact Trump's utter nonsense ignores, per Reuters. With markets hemorrhaging $10 trillion this year, per Goldman Sachs, Habeck branded Trump's reciprocal tariffs isolationist measures that cause significant harm, per CNN Business, urging Europe to act prudently and dodge a tariff war that's already gutting the Dow, down 6,000 points, per Bloomberg. Trump's comeback? A clueless jab yesterday. Germany went too green, he sneered, per WSJ, claiming they almost went out of business with wind power that wasn't blowing, now scrambling back to coal. It's a wild distortion. Germany's renewables power 50% of its grid, per Reuters, while coal's faded, per Bloomberg, and Trump's own market chaos, $34 billion to billionaires like Charles Schwab in a day, per Bloomberg, makes his scam taunt laughable. He's unhinged, economist Paul Krugman fired on CNBC as the S&P bleeds, per WSJ. Habeck's counter is steel. Unity is our strength, he stressed, per Reuters, warning Europe against splintering under Trump's divide-and-conquer playbook. $5 billion in EU tariffs hit back today, per Bloomberg. He's cornered America, Habeck added, per CNN Business, as Germany mulls a $124 billion gold exit from New York, per WSJ. The U.S. isn't leading, it's lurching. The Wall Street Journal gutted it. Habeck's exposing Trump's tariff farce. Germany's not blinking. As chaos reigns, one question looms. Can Trump's green rant mask his economic wrecking ball? Europe's united, and it's swinging. Germany's incoming Chancellor Friedrich Merz isn't waiting for Trump's chaos to burn out. He's rallying Europe to ditch the U.S. months ago, he declared. We can't rely on the U.S. A Trump, or Musk, Europe must take its fate into its own hands. Per WSJ, a clarion call as markets bleed $10 trillion this year under Trump's tariffs, per Goldman Sachs. With the Dow down 6,000 points since inauguration, per Bloomberg, Merz's push for unity isn't just talk, it's a lifeline, slamming Trump's indifference to Europe's fate after last week's reckless rants, per Reuters, that sank the S&P, per WSJ. Musk's meddling fuels the fire. His interventions in German elections are unprecedented, Merz warned, per CNN Business. With ex-posts swaying voters recently, $5 billion in EU tariffs hit the U.S. today as payback, per Bloomberg. It's as brazen as Moscow's, he added, per Reuters, eyeing independent defense capabilities to ditch a flailing NATO. Its June summit looms shaky, per WSJ, as Trump's $1 trillion military splurge threatens allies, per Bloomberg. We're under pressure from two sides, Merz stressed, per CNN Business, with U.S. credibility torched. The stakes are razor-sharp. Trump's turned America into a liability, economist Paul Krugman blasted on CNBC, as Germany mulls a $124 billion gold exit from New York, per WSJ. A $10 billion trade hit looms, per Reuters. Merz's absolute priority is a united Europe. Mercosur and Pacific deals in sight, per Bloomberg, while the U.S. flounders. He's cornered us, Habeck echoed, per CNN Business. The Wall Street Journal gutted it. Merz is burying Trump's America. Europe's rising. As chaos reigns, one question looms. Can Europe cut the cord before Trump's wreckage drags it down? The clock's ticking, and Merz is moving. Joe Biden's legacy looms large as Trump's chaos craters America, and Germany's not forgetting it. On October 20th, 2024, Biden wrote, "Germany has taught us all that change is possible," saluting President Steinmeier and Chancellor Scholz for steering Europe through turmoil, per WSJ, a stark contrast to today's $10 trillion market bleed under Trump, per Goldman Sachs. With the Dow down 6,000 points since inauguration, per Bloomberg, Biden's era of 20% plus equity growth shines, a beacon Trump's tariff mess, 125% on China, per Reuters, has torched, per WSJ. Biden's NATO steel stands taller still. On July 10, 2024, he awarded Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg the Presidential Medal of Freedom, lauding his integrity for boosting NATO's might, $50 billion in added defense spending since 2021, per CNN Business, as Trump's threats to gut it loom, per Bloomberg. Scholz fired back today. It was a mistake to underestimate Biden, per Reuters, crediting his focus as markets real. $34 billion to billionaires like Schwab yesterday, per Bloomberg, while 401ks tank, per BLS. Trump's unraveling it, Scholz implied, per WSJ. The proof's in Biden's grind. On July 5, 2024, he boasted, "I expanded NATO, grew the economy, citing 200,000 new jobs that month, per BLS. A middle-class win Trump's $4.5 trillion billionaire tax cuts shred, per Goldman Sachs. He restored decency," analyst James Carville noted on MSNBC, as Trump's chaos, $880 billion cut from Medicaid, per Reuters, bleeds America dry. Biden built, Trump burns, economist Paul Krugman blasted on CNBC. The Wall Street Journal nailed it. Biden's NATO backbone towers over Trump's wreckage. As allies rally, one question looms: can Trump's tantrum undo a legacy of strength? The clips scream no, and history's watching. Buckle up, America. Trump's top trade guy just got humiliated on Capitol Hill, caught flat-footed as his boss flipped the tariff script. The chaos is peak Trump, and it's a train wreck. For 2 days, U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer testified under oath, day 1 before the Senate, day 2 before the House, spinning a cockamamie yarn to justify Trump's global tariffs, per WSJ. "No pause ever," he swore, per Reuters, shrugging off 10% inflation or millions of jobs lost, defending a $10 trillion market bleed this year, per Goldman Sachs, with the Dow down 6,000 points, per Bloomberg. Then day 2 hit like a gut punch. Mid-testimony before the House, Greer's phone pinged. A Google alert revealing Trump had paused tariffs on all countries but China, per CNN Business, shredding every word he'd peddled for a day and a half. "Oh, crap!" his face screamed, per WSJ, as Democrats pounced. "You didn't know?" They grilled, per Reuters, spotlighting a trade rep blindsided by a tweet. $34 billion flowed to billionaires like Charles Schwab that day, per Bloomberg, while 401ks tanked, per BLS. The farce is glaring. This is the Trump regime's chaos, analyst Ben Meiselas blasted on Midas Touch, per CNN Business, as Greer stammered, "I think it's smart," per WSJ, a spineless pivot for a policy he'd sworn was ironclad. "It's not leadership, it's lunacy," economist Paul Krugman roared on CNBC, with the S&P's wild swings mocking the mess, per Bloomberg. Congress watched a trade chief learn his job's a sham in real time. The Wall Street Journal gutted it. Greer's testimony imploded. Trump's tweet rewrote the game. As markets reel, one question looms. How does a trade rep not know the plan? The answer's Trump, and it's a disaster. Day 1 on Capitol Hill turned into a slaughterhouse for Trump's trade rep, Jamieson Greer, and Senator Mark Warner brought the cleaver. "Why the hell are you tariffing Australia?" he roared, per WSJ, shredding Greer's cockamamie Greek formula that whacked an ally with a trade surplus, $5 billion in U.S. favor, per Bloomberg. "This undermines national security and trust," Warner thundered, per Reuters, slamming a ridiculous policy that's bled $10 trillion from markets this year, per Goldman Sachs, with the Dow down 6,000 points, per WSJ. Greer's excuse? A $1. $2 trillion Biden deficit dodge, per CNN Business, a flimsy shield for a tariff fiasco. Senator Maggie Hassan turned up the heat. "What if inflation hits 10%? She pressed, per Bloomberg, a threshold topping COVID peaks. Yet Greer stonewalled, the president's fixed in his purpose, per WSJ, shrugging off a $10 billion consumer hit, per Reuters. She doubled down. A 50% stock market crash, like the Great Recession, would you reverse? Greer dodged again, touting 228,000 jobs last month and strong fundamentals, per CNN Business, as if the S&P's 4% plunge today didn't scream otherwise, per Bloomberg. It's reckless denial. economist Paul Krugman blasted on CNBC. The stakes are savage. You're saying 700,000 job losses wouldn't budge you? Hassan implied, per WSJ, as 401ks bleed billions. Per BLS, $34 billion flowed to billionaires like Schwab instead, per Bloomberg. This isn't strategy, it's insanity. Analyst Ben Michelis roared on Midas Touch, per CNN Business, with allies like Australia reeling, per Reuters. Greer's no-pause vow, a gutted relic. The Wall Street Journal carved it up. Warner and Hassan gutted Greer's tariff farce. America's paying the butcher's bill. As chaos reigns, one question looms. How long can Greer dodge reality? The markets and jobs won't wait. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto skewered Jamieson Greer on Capitol Hill today, demanding he be intellectually honest about Trump's tariff mess. You think you can negotiate with 50 countries overnight? She pressed, per WSJ, torching Greer's claim after the USMCA took 2 years. Per Reuters, $10 trillion bled from markets this year, per Goldman Sachs, and the Dow's down 6,000 points, per Bloomberg. It's a fantasy, she snapped, per CNN Business, as $5 billion in trade hangs, per WSJ, while Greer floundered. $34 billion went to billionaires like Schwab today, per Bloomberg, not workers, per BLS. Senator Maria Cantwell turned it into a bonfire this morning. Tariffs are tanking tourism and semiconductors. Innovation's the tool, she roared, per Reuters, slamming Greer's blank stare as raspberry growers beg for relief. $2 billion in losses loom, per WSJ. You're tariffing chips after we passed CHIPS Act? She fired, per CNN Business, with the S&P's 4% plunge today mocking his reshoring excuse, per Bloomberg. It's incompetence, economist Paul Krugman blasted on CNBC as $10 billion in tech trade teeters, per Reuters. Senator Tom Tillis landed a pre-pause jab. Whose throat do I choke if this flops? He demanded, per WSJ, before Trump's 90-day tariff flip today. Greer stammered, "Talk to me," per Reuters, shouldering a $10 trillion wreck, per Goldman Sachs. No plan, just pain, analyst Ben Michelis raged on Midas Touch, per CNN Business, as Cortez Masto's haphazard charge stuck. 401ks bleed, while Greer shrugs, per BLS. The Wall Street Journal gutted it. Cortez Masto, Cantwell, and Tillis torched Greer's tariff sham. Chaos reigns. As markets crumble, one question looms. Can Greer's excuses outlast the fallout? America's sinking, and fast. Senator Bernie Sanders turned Jamieson Greer's testimony into a bonfire today, torching Trump's tariff lies with righteous fury. Why does he lie all the time? Sanders roared, per WSJ, shredding the 25% Canada tariff pinned on fentanyl, a market-crashing sham as the Dow shed 6,000 points since inauguration, per Bloomberg. It's a con, he fumed, per Reuters, with $10 trillion bled from markets this year, per Goldman Sachs, $5 billion in Canada trade hangs, per WSJ, while $34 billion flowed to billionaires like Schwab today, per Bloomberg. Greer mumbled, legal basis, per CNN Business, as 401ks crater, per BLS. Congressman Stephen Horsford piled on the heat. Trump blinked, he charged today, per Reuters, grilling Greer on the 90-day tariff pause after China's retaliation. $10 billion in counters hit back, per WSJ. What's the plan? He pressed, per CNN Business, as Greer flailed. 2 or 3 days ago, Trump wanted talks, he dodged, per Bloomberg, offering zero details on a flip that gutted his no-pause vow. It's chaos incarnate, economist Paul Krugman blasted on CNBC, with the S&P's wild swings mocking Greer's spin, per WSJ. MAGA's budget rigging sealed the farce. Today, Republicans rammed through a plan surrendering Congress's tariff power. No vote, no check. $4.5 trillion in billionaire tax cuts intact, per Goldman Sachs, as Democrats all voted no, per Reuters. It's a power grab, analyst Ben Michelis roared on Midas Touch, per CNN Business, $880 billion slashed from Medicaid, per Bloomberg, while markets bleed. The Wall Street Journal gutted it. Sanders and Horsford exposed Greer's sham, MAGA's rigging the ruins. As chaos reigns, one question looms. Can this spin outlast the crash? America's broke, and they're laughing. Jameson Greer's two-day Capitol Hill circus was a flop of epic proportions, swearing no pause ever on Trump's tariffs, only for Trump to flip the script on day 2, per WSJ, leaving Greer gobsmacked mid-testimony. $10 trillion bled from markets this year, per Goldman Sachs. Senators Mark Warner, Maggie Hassan, and Bernie Sanders torched him. Warner shredding the Australia tariff lunacy, Hassan nailing him on 10% inflation indifference, Sanders gutting Trump's Canada fentanyl lie, per Reuters. It's a sham, economist Paul Krugman roared on CNBC as the Dow's 6,000-point plunge, per Bloomberg, mocked Greer's strong fundamentals, per WSJ. Trump's chaos fueled the fire. Greer dodged Cortez Masto's tourism collapse and Warren's 700,000 job loss bombs. $34 billion flowed to billionaires like Schwab today, per Bloomberg, while 401ks cratered, per BLS. No plan, just pain. Analyst Ben Meiselas blasted on Midas Touch, per CNN Business, as Cantwell slammed semiconductor tariffs gutting innovation, $5 billion in trade teeters, per WSJ. Horsford's Trump-blinked jab exposed Greer's spin. China's $10 billion retaliation forced the pause, per Reuters, shredding his no-pause vow. MAGA's budget rigging sealed the betrayal. Today, they rammed through $4.5 trillion in tax cuts for the rich, $880 billion axed from Medicaid, per Bloomberg, surrendering Congress's tariff power, all Democrats voting no, per WSJ. It's a looting spree, Senator Elizabeth Warren thundered on MSNBC, with a $30 trillion deficit looming, per Goldman Sachs. Tillis's whose throat to choke got Greer's lame me. A $10 trillion wreck says he's choking already, per Reuters. The Wall Street Journal gutted it. Greer's flop, Trump's chaos, MAGA's rigging, America's the carcass. As markets bleed, one question looms: can this sham outrun the collapse? The wreckage roars, and it's deafening.